I'm steeped in it. I've studied Buddhism till the cows come home, Jainism, Sufism, Shintoism, and they're all in the periodic table. So in Being of Knowledge, I've gone into the religious dimensions of the human experience in great detail for the first time. No other philosopher has ever done this in as much depth. And it's not a boast, it's just a statement of fact. Read the book and you'll know what I'm talking about. Why have I done it like that? Because I'm a rebel against the idea that you can oversimplify philosophy. When I was studying philosophy at Bristol, and the lecturer said, Buddhism isn't a philosophy, don't take it seriously, don't bother reading it, I resigned. Because I know that Oriental philosophy, Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, they're at least as sophisticated as anything Western thought has come up with. That was an insult to my intelligence, so I went off and studied independently in Canada for 4 years. Of course Buddhism is a philosophy. And so my gift back to the philosophical profession is to say, I feel like a little boy. I went out, found all these treasures, I've come back, and I'm giving them back to them. I don't know if anyone's still awake among the philosophers at Bristol or London or Oxford or Cambridge. There's a few. I've got a few friends in Oxford who are still awake, but most of them are pretty sleepy because they've redefined philosophy as a sort of, it's like trench warfare. You stick in your part of the trench. You only do you make a career out of studying the meaning of the word and you write learned papers on the meaning of the word and somebody down there, further down the trench, who's writing learned papers on the meaning of the word before, and you exchange papers, and that's it. That's what philosophers are doing. They're doing this sort of trench warfare, which that's what I discovered when I first dabbled in this. Whereas I'm up there with the air balloons, looking at the whole strategy, the whole landscape, and trying to stop the wars, which is why I launched Philosophers of Peace, right? So why intellecting? Well, I'm just trying to give you a little glimpse of what intellecting is all about. And come and join us, the World Intellectual Forum. We meet on the 30th of each month. We do have friends who are members from India, from different countries, Russia, all over the world. And we're trying to put our minds together to intellect so that we can find a solution to the problems of global warming, climate meltdown, world poverty, resource, misuse, militarism, and etc., all the problems that we're facing as a planet. Another project I want to share briefly is the other project I'm doing, and here's where I'm doing it. This is my command control center. I'm just coming to the end of my commentary on the Quran. As if you follow my work, you will know. I started this at the Castle of the Muses in Scotland, and I've been working on it on and off for 10 years. I'm now working on it, intensely, an hour a day. And I'm coming up to the end. I reckon it'll be done by the end of the year, if I keep it up, which I intend to. Why bother? Well, the Quran is such a fascinating script. Fascinating and intellectually very challenging. Is this like a revelation that came straight from God down to the mind of Muhammad and he just spoke and they wrote it down? That's what sort of Orthodox Islam says. But that's not really intellectually satisfying, is it, to me, as a scholar and historian? I think it's much more complicated because, the intellectual higher reaches of divine inspiration come down into the mind of Muhammad, but he has a mind, he has a cultural context, he has a language, he has a conceptual worldview, and he's shaped by all the people he's met. He's met people who've told him about Christianity. He's lived with Khadija for 15 years, 20 years before the Quran starts coming. And he has travelled about. He's been a merchant. He's been to Damascus and met people there. He's been to Hira, the capital of the Lakhmid kingdom, which is near where Kufa was later built as a great citadel of Islamic scholarship, where Ali was. And he's been to the Yemen, almost certainly. So he's met everyone. He's been inspired and influenced by them all. And you can see that in the text of the Quran. So I'm doing a historical critical commentary, and I'm also doing it in chronological sequence. the surahs that we have in the Quran are not in chronological sequence. They're in a order of length. I mean, which was a practice among certain Jewish texts, but not, it doesn't make any sense. So I followed the work of a great Islamic scholar called Theodore Noel Decker, 1836 to 1930, who put the Quran back into chronological sequence. And he wrote a famous book, The History of the Quran, which he could never finish, but he did some amazing research. And since then there have been others. So I'm drawing on all the latest studies on the Quran, historical studies, linguistic and so on. And I'm discussing some of the controversies. I mean, there are scholars in the Western world that say Muhammad didn't even exist. I mean, there are revisionists, people like Patricia Crone and John Wansborough. They've even questioned whether Muhammad existed and whether there was anything going on in Mecca at that time. Some of them want to say, no, it wasn't there. These are the sort of people that say, in Christian terms, they say that Jesus didn't exist, Every religion has these ultimate skeptics, and you need them because you need to be able to sort of out-argue them. I don't take the view of Patricia Crone and Wansborough and that lot, those extreme revisionists. No, I think there was a Muhammad, and yes, he did channel the Quran, and yes, he did live in Mecca and Medina, and the bulk of all that history is authentic. But I do think that an awful lot has got distorted and left out. And what interests me is the research by some of the more recent scholars, such as Gabriel Reynolds, a professor at the University of Notre Dame. His book, The Quran and Its Historical Context, he edited a series of essays, 2008, published by Routledge, which is to die for interesting. There they quote the works of Joseph Azzi, A-Z-Z-I, who says the Quran is a product of Ebionite Christian teachings funneled through Waraka, who we know was a cousin to Muhammad's wife, Khadija, and was literate, and according to Azzi, had a copy of the Ebionite Gospel, or the Gospel of the Hebrews, which might well have been in Hebrew, possibly translated into a Syriac alphabet, and that Waraka had taught this to Muhammad. So as he says, no, Waraka wasn't just like he met Muhammad once and touched his face and said, this guy's going to be a prophet. No, he was actually his teacher and was training Muhammad to become the head of the Ebionite Christian community in Mecca. Well, that's very, very interesting, So I'm looking at all this latest research, these latest evidences, as he reckons that Muhammad broke from Waraka by setting up as a prophet in his own right. But what's interesting, the Ebionite Christians, who are referenced by Jerome and other great Christian scholars that I have here in this section of the library, they didn't accept that Jesus was the Son of God. They didn't accept his divinity. They were like the Jewish Christians that had scattered into the deserts, and they saw Jesus as a prophet in the lineage of Moses, Abraham, and all the others, but not as Superman, Son of God type thing. They also didn't accept the letters of Paul. They didn't accept Paul's whole theology of redemption. No, that's all made up, they said. No, we just want Christ was a prophet, like the other prophets. Well, that's actually very close to what the Quran is saying. So I think there's something in this argument. And I've been making it all along about Waraka's influence and the influence of the, let's say, the desert Gnostic Christians, because there's also evidence of the Gnostic Christian teachings getting into the Quran and its sources. We have the legend of Jesus making clay birds, which is a very odd legend. And apparently the boy Jesus, like 12-year-old, could make a bird out of clay, and then he would blow on it, and it would fly away and become a real bird. And he would do this as a kind of party trick. And some of his playmates thought he was rather odd, and that's told in the Quran, right? Now, the only other source we know is a Gnostic infancy gospel. So obviously Muhammad was moving in circles where these Gnostic texts were also circulating, in the cafes of Hira or whatever. Well, that's what I've been untangling. You see, that's why to me this is such an exciting challenge to me as a scholar, historian, teacher of religious studies, philosopher, because more than 1 billion people regard this book as their holy guidance tract. Well, let's find out where it really comes from, what it's actually saying, and that, I think, is good news. You see, I believe true scholarship is on the side of the angels. That's why I'm with Benedict, like, study and pray. Work and pray, but to me that's study and pray. You know, do your divine reading. And that's for all of us. It doesn't matter what your outer thing is, whether you're a Christian, a Buddhist, a Hindu, a Druid, whatever, you know. Do your studying in depth. And to me that reinforces authentic faith. If your faith is authentic, it can withstand critical reason. As Kant said, you know, dare to be wise means like dare to study to the depth and find real truth, not just buy a package deal from some, you know, supermarket where they sell little pills of religious enlightenment, you know, buy one, get one free. No. If you want the real McCoy, you have to go really into it in depth. And that's why I really honour and respect, you know, authentic scholars. So that's, the Quran is my offering, it's my present, one of my presents to mankind. I hope the Muslims of the world will get reading it and listening to it. It's an oral thing. You can listen to it on the Green University, which is my homage to El Kidda, you know, the sage who dressed in green. And I'm just recording the work on Surah 18, which is really interesting because it's about Alexander the Great, the two-horned one. And why is Alexander the Great in the Quran, you might ask? Well, it's a very good question. The reason is because he was an important figure, Alexander the Great. You know, he was a prophet in his own right. The Quran treats him as a kind of prophet. And towards the end of his life, he wanted to unite mankind in one great family. And he didn't want humanity to be in these warring tribes. I have a text here, which I'm going to read out, from Alexander the Great, which was his last speech, so to speak. Before he died, he gave this talk at this place called Opis. And he sadly died not long after this. This was in 324 BC. Whether Muhammad knew this text, I don't know. Probably not, because it sort of vanished. It was only in rare classical sources. But the idea that Alexander had been trying to unite humanity, I think, was known. This is what Alexander said. It is my wish, now that the wars are coming to an end, that you should all be happy in peace. From now on, let all mortals live one people, in fellowship, for the good of all. See the whole world as your homeland, with laws common to all, wherever the best will govern, regardless of their race. Unlike the narrow-minded, I make no distinction between Greeks and barbarians. The origin of the citizens or the race into which they are born is of no concern to me. I have only one criterion by which to distinguish them: virtue. For me, any good foreigner is a Greek, and any bad Greek is worse than a barbarian. If disputes ever occur among you, you will not resort to weapons, but will solve them in peace. If need be, I shall arbitrate between you. See God not as an autocratic despot, but as the common father of all. And thus your conduct will be like the lives of brothers within the same family. I, on my part, see you all as equal, whether you're white or dark-skinned, and I would like you not simply to be subjects of my commonwealth, but members of it, partners of it. To the best of my ability, I shall strive to do what I have promised. Keep as a symbol of love this oath, which we have taken tonight, with our libations. Anyway, that is a text that's come down, sworn as opus in 324 BC, just before his death, tragically, possibly of poison. You know, history doesn't like prophets, and so they tend to get poisoned off. Even Muhammad, it is said, may well have been poisoned. The jury's still out on that one. I'm going into it in the commentary. Aristotle was the teacher of Alexander the Great, and, you know, I think had a big influence on him. And that intellectual restlessness of Alexander at its best is also a reflection of Aristotle's work. And of course he founded Alexandria, which became the intellectual capital of the Mediterranean region, with influence that stretched all the way to Takshila in northern India and off to the Americas. I mean, the spirit of California, the openness to new ideas, that is Alexandrian, reborn in San Francisco and Los Angeles. That's what I love about the American people. They are clever, they're intellectuals at their best, and open to new ideas and thoughts, and Jewish and Christian and pagan ideas all mingled around in Alexandria and reached a kind of reconciliation. The great library at Alexandria was dedicated to the 9 muses, as is mine. I mean, you're in Polyhymnia, just one of the 9 sections of my library, which is tiny in comparison to the great library at Alexandria. So anyway, I honour the spirit behind the Quran, and I'm trying to recover it. Now, something also that I've been up to in my commentary on the Quran is trying to find out, you know, where it went wrong. Why did Islam get rebranded as sort of military adventurism to go off and kill non-Muslims? Where did that whole notion come from? Surely that's not what Muhammad wanted. I mean, he was a clever chap. He was a good man. He was inspired by Khadija and Waraka and Ali to find an authentic universalism. That's what the Quran text that I love is all about. So why did suddenly it become a sort of military adventurism? Well, the answer is locked up in this book, The Life of Ali, the Prophet's successor, because the poor old chap was the carrier of the real knowledge of Islam, and he was excluded from power, you know, by deliberate political machinations that kept him out of office until it was too late. The military-industrial, you know, super warlords of his day stole power, pretending to be Muslims, creating Islam as a sort of fake thing. But the real knowledge of real Islam was then kept privately by Ali and his descendants, who became the great imams. And read the book, you know, if you don't believe me. Now, one thing that's a clincher to me that I think is really interesting is that Ali had a copy of the teachings, the revelations of Muhammad, which was in chronological order. So what I'm doing is essentially trying to reconstruct Ali's Quran, and he spent weeks writing it down after the Prophet died, who refused to go and jostle and try and get status and power. His duty was to preserve the writings of the teachings of Muhammad, the Quran, the channelings of Muhammad, and it was in the chronological order. Now, tragically, the third caliph, Uthman, who was a really nasty chap, an Umayyad, he was from the school that had tried to kill Muhammad. The Umayyads hated Muhammad and everything Islam stood for. They only pretended to become Muslims so they could get in on the power, the cut. And Uthman, you know, appointed some of the really nasty lot to positions of power in a kind of nepotistic thing. And then Uthman had this brilliant idea. He said, I tell you what, we'll capture the Quran, we'll make one version of it, and then we'll destroy all the other versions. What authentic spiritual movement would think such things appropriate? Surely the point was to find out what's the authentic source of Muhammad's teachings. No, for them it was to centrify and codify and control. Now, you know, Constantine did the same in Christianity with his official Bible. It's something that religions do, but I oppose it because I'm an intellectual and I want truth, not rigid centralism. you know. And so Ali's Quran, which was chronological, was handed over by him because Uthman insisted at the point of the sword, you know, hand over your copies or die. Ali made a mistake. I think that Ali is a bit naughty. He shouldn't have given him his chronological text. And I just hope and pray that it was hidden in some cave somewhere in Iraq or Iran or wherever. And I'm praying and praying that it still comes to light. If anyone's got Ali's chronological Quran, please contact me, because it will make my life easier, because I can finish my commentary with reference to it. The other thing I think is naughty is Ali should have commented on the Quran. He should have done his own commentary. It's called a tafsir, what I'm doing. You know, I'm 1400 years too late. I should have been there at the time to write it all down. I'm trying to reconstruct something that Ali should have written down 1400 years ago. And, you know, I'm hoping he did, and I'm hoping that's also in some cave in Iraq or Iran. The reason I want peace in the Middle East, and have set up the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the Middle East, is because I want peace there so that we can then find all these lost works hidden in the caves. The Sufis, the saints, can come out of hiding and say, yeah, we've got Ali's Quran, it's here, but nobody don't shoot, you know. I mean, that's my vision of history. We get the peace, and then the wisdom can come back. I think at the moment it's kept in occultation. That's what they say about the hidden Imam. He's occulted, he's hidden from us, because we are too barbaric to understand or appreciate the wisdom that the 12th Imam stood for. Well, that's the wisdom that is the authentic meaning of the chronological Quran. And that's why I'm bothering with it, you know. This is a hidden Imam project, trying to unoccult that wisdom. And if you know anyone who knows anyone that knows anywhere where the Ali's commentaries are hidden, please get in touch and we'll translate them. Okay, so that's that. And, you know, listen to the commentary on the Quran. I think you'll enjoy it. I want to mention football just before I finish, because football, hey, it's like the religion of Britain, okay? And all these fans will be out tonight chanting at Wembley, and there'll be fights between Italian and English fans. And all I can say about football is I think it's a bit overrated as a game. I used to play as a boy. I was reasonably good. It was fun after school, you know, in the playground. You know, it's fun. I mean, football's fun, yeah. But it shouldn't be like the religion. It's not a substitute for wisdom. I would rather live in a society where intellecting is given more value than kicking a ball around, you know. But unfortunately, Britain has become a society where kicking a ball around gets rewarded with gross salaries, hundreds of millions of pounds, whereas intellecting at a high level is just simply ignored. I mean, proper scholarship simply is, you know, it's hard to get access to, and it's had to go into occultation, a bit like me. You know, I'm living in a sort of occulted life because the footballers have taken over my country. So I have a problem with it. I have a problem because it forces us to choose between, like, do we support Italy or England? It creates everything into this binary simplicity. I love Italy, as you know, like Monte Casino, Rome. I've travelled all over, Naples. I love Italy, to die for. I think it's much more beautiful than most of England. Aesthetically, you know, I'm on the side of Italy. But, you know, I've got English roots. I love England in parts. I've taught there for many years. My degrees are from the University of London. So I'm sort of also on the side of England. Well, why can't it be both? No, because football says you've got to choose. So it's like a war. And that's my problem with war. I don't like wars because they make you choose between X and Y. I choose love and non-violence because I love both X and Y. I choose both. And love to me is the energy that unites X and Y. This is what I've tried to explain in my book on religious mathematics, which I have here, which I've spoken about before in these talks. You know, I'm interested in relativity theory in religious maths, or how how everything is interconnected and how mathematics can show that. So I'd like a more sophisticated sort of football. I don't want to carry on with this game. And it seems to me, I invented a rule reform, which I'm going to share with you, called Druid Football some years ago. I still think it's a good idea, and I'm giving it away here. I like this idea. You see, the football that we watch and love and get excited by is a bunch of men, 2 teams, 11 aside, full of testosterone, aggression and all that. And what are they doing? They're bashing balls into a net. And they kick them and it goes in the net and they score. I mean, this is such a sort of erotic sexual symbolism. Kicking the ball into the net is the sort of the goal of the man. It's a bit simplistic, right? And it's far too aggressive. It's like sperm competition going on. I want to make a very subtle change to the rules, and it's also it's not finessed enough. So I've proposed in Druid Football that the goals at each end of the pitch should be on little railway tracks, and they should be movable. So, here's the pitch, here's the football goal at the end, and it can be moved side to side, right? So that when the enemy team are coming in to fire into your goal, you can move the goal because it's on little wheels which are movable. So that would make it even more complex, right? Now, who's operating the goal? Who's moving the goal up and down? Well, that's 4 women who are moving the goals, and they are part of the team. So the goalkeeper's still there, but he's surrounded by his 4 women who are trying to anticipate where the guy's going to fire, and they're going to move the goal out of the scene. And they have to be totally psyched in with the goalkeeper so that they're moving it to the left and he knows they're moving to the left or the right or whatever. So it make it just so much more exciting. Also, it introduce a nice kind of erotic element to the game, because you'd have these lovely goal movers who'd be beautifully attired in sort of like cheerleaders in American sports, in American football, and they'd be sort of part of the entertainment. The whole thing is, of course, a bit of a, it's slightly tongue-in-cheek, because one of the sayings in English is we say that women always move the goalposts, right? So this is a joke, but it's a serious joke, and I think it's time the women move the goalposts, because at the moment it's too dominated by these testosterone-fueled men. So let the women move the goals up and down, and it would make the whole thing much more fun and enjoyable, more of a laugh, less to the death, we're going to kill the enemy team, we hate them, we're the English, well, they're the Italians, we hate them. All that nonsense would go. It would be like a fun day out, and the kids could watch, and the presence of women on the pitch in the teams in that way, I think would humanise the whole thing and make it much more fun. And it would play it out like a sort of pageant, a theatre more. Anyway, that's my idea. And of course the same would be for women's soccer. I know there are great women's soccer teams. So there you'd have the men moving the goalposts. And it would be a gender specific thing. Which is just a bit of fun, really. So that's my proposal. That's called Druid Football. And I'm looking for a sponsor. If you'd like to contact me, we'll make the first pitch. We'll set up some pitches and get a little competition going of Druid Football. I think it might catch on. It'd be much more fun, and it would make a more peace-oriented game. Because what I have a problem with football is that it's so aggressive and competitive, and men being men, and they go on and beat each other up and stuff. That's so pathetic. Let's make it much more a love thing. Let's bring out that erotic loving element, that this is all a pageant because we all love each other finally. And so, like Parmenides said, we're all one being. Let's celebrate the game with good humour, with enjoyment, and let's all love each other. Simple as that. Anyway, there we are. That's my Druid Football, and you heard it here for the first time. Right, I'm going to finish with a poem, because I'm also a poet, and here is my little, I hope you've enjoyed a visit to my study today for the 11th of July. It's a historic day. It's the day of the magic of, you know, everything really. Okay, so this is a poem I wrote at Avebury on my birthday, May the 8th, in 2009. I was teaching at the time at St Mary's School in Caen, which is a beautiful school. I love St Mary's. Hello, if anyone from there still remembers me. It's a lovely Anglican all-girls school, really nice people. You know, hope you're surviving well. I presume it's survived through the lockdown. And I was teaching philosophy and thinking skills and religious studies there. And this is a poem I wrote because it was very close to Avebury, and I used to leave school at the end of the day and go to Avebury and sit and listen to the, you know, the bird songs. In this case, it's called Bird Songs. Wondrous tuning, turning, squawking, yearning, chatter, soulmates, conversations, feathered friends. What do you tell me? What do I see you saying? Local news. It's this place, it's that worm, that spot, the view from here. See, go up, look from there. Occasionally, one comes from further away. A different tremor. Like a rumbling of far distant thunder. It's no different with us poets. You can hear the levels of sound all the way up to the apex, to the dove's soft coo of May. You may, you can, yes, love. Permission granted. Do, you can, you may, can do. Occasionally, one comes who only says yes, whose yes opens the door between this universe and the next. That's where birds sing from. They've been lit up by that light forever. They go back and forth like braves on a spirit journey, flying between worlds. The same things they told to Solomon. From it, he built the temple. Their sounds resound the lyre strings between visible and invisible realms. It's their pure seeing, saying. It's their thinking, singing, to honour the journey and the light, where they come and go from. At sunset, they go up in one great ascent. Starlings go so deep into love. They loop around each other in impossible Moebius strips, defying geometry, to dance their magic out. Electrons also dance to make up our own body shapes persistently. The strangest thing is that as we grow old and die, we ever think we're something solid. We're a shimmering electron cloud held together by our inmost songs. We dance